Yeah, hi, this is Karl Wilcox from Diamond Head and Tank, welcoming you to my interview with Bruce. Rock and roll.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
70,000 tons of metal.
The original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise. 60 bands, 4 days, one cruise ship, only 3,000 tickets.
From Miami, Florida to Ocho Rios, Jamaica.
January 30th to February 3rd, 2025. 5 days and 4 nights mingling side by side with your favorite artists in this incredible fan-friendly scenario that has no comparison.
Go to 70,000tons.com and book your ticket
now.
Okay, mate, just fire away your questions and I'll share them back to you while I try and sort this out. If that
No
works.
worries at all. Yeah, that works just fine. Let me make sure I got some good levels here. We're good. All right, we can just jump right in if you want.
Yep, sure, fire away, man, fire away.
All right, let's see. Looking back on your career, are there any moments or achievements that you hold particularly close to your heart? And if so, why?
Oh, okay, during my career. Okay, I suppose the first show I did with my first original band, that was Requiem. We were at the tail end of the new wave of British heavy metal. Some folks called us like the forefathers of doom metal. So that was obviously very precious because myself and Steve, the guitarist from Requiem, we did all the organising. We hired a Canuck Forum. They put the show on. We got support band. We sold the tickets, got the backdrop, and etc., etc., etc. So that that obviously for me, I was hoping that it would be the start of a career that would allow me to play original music in the sense of myself going to see bands like UFO, Thin Lizzy, Scorpions, Rainbow, etc., at Birmingham Odeon and Wolverhampton Civic Hall, and eventually Stafford Bingley Hall, also known as the Cowshed. Could I do that? Possibly, maybe, for a living, because I'd been playing trumpet for 10 years, and I'd already sort of wanted to become a professional musician. But obviously, I made the transition from trumpet to drums with the county wind band and into the big band. And obviously, once I started seeing, AC/DC, Phil Rudd, and like all that kind of stuff, and got into all the records, it was like, yeah, could one possibly do this and make a living? The concept of like wanting to be a rock star the way it is portrayed now wasn't really on the table back then, the way it is now. It's sort of like, okay, can you do this and make a living? Because back in the day, like when I started seeing rock bands, 77, 78, 79, into 80s, it was, rock bands did an album, they did a tour, they took some time off, they recorded another album, they went out and they promoted it, et cetera, et cetera. That was the way that it was. You saw Lights Out. You saw UFO on the Lights Out tour, and then the next thing you're seeing UFO on the Obsession tour, and then it's UFO on the Strangers in the Night tour. The whole concept of like singles and Rockstar and what it became, obviously with the help of MTV, for everything that brought to the table. Back in the 70s when I started, that really wasn't, on the table. Another memorable thing was meeting Buddy Rich and Steve Williams from Budgie, because I was a big Budgie fan, and I really liked Steve Williams because he was the first concert. Budgie was the first concert I actually went to see at Birmingham Odeon, and the support band were a band called Nuts. I really got into that band as well. Great band. Wallbanger and. It was just a great concert, and I really admired the way Steve Williams played. So he became a big influence to me in my early years, especially when you have the the ginormous rock drum kits, 6 toms around the front,
Right, right.
six cymbals all on giraffe stands, your snare drum is like 60 degrees sloping towards you. Obviously, that changed. I was already into the jazz, the big band cats.
Right.
Buddy Rich, Lou Belson, because my father was a dance band drummer. So, I sort of grew up around that whole kind of environment and listening to things that, that my dad was listening to. And then obviously I was exposed to Bonham and, Cozy Powell and Ian Pace and Brian Downey, Don Pell from Slade, probably one of my favorite bands. And fortuitous, again, another thing I could mention would be working with Jimmy Lee, bass player from Slade, co-wrote, Mama We're All Crazy Now and Come On Feel the Noise, obviously. So working with him, was another great moment. And then, did my first show with Diamond Head and working up through the ranks with that. And obviously, one of the, coup de grace kind of thing, as Brian said when he did an interview that, I've just checked the bucket list and that's it. And it was playing Nebworth, with the Big Four, quote unquote.
Hey.
They don't get any bigger shows than Nebworth, Zeppelin, Stones, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So actually play that, that was great. And then recently, my first show with Tank, at the Cart and Horses, in London, and I've got a memento. The Trooper beer glass, which obviously you can't see because for some reason we have no bloody video. So I completely apologise for that. So it says cameras on. So go. I just don't know. Anyway, I apologise. So I hope that give you some info.
Yeah. As you continue to age, then what legacy do you hope to leave behind as a heavy musician, and what do you want to be remembered by future generations of fans, or how do you want to be remembered by future generations of fans?
Wow. Again, another good question. I have Donald Duck tattooed on my right shoulder, and he's like a big inspiration for me. Like never giving up. You know what I mean? Like all the shit that's coming his way. He's never given up. And I think that I think I could probably put out there without much folks going like I don't think so, that I really work to help keep Diamond Head going in the live sense and the recording. Obviously, Brian's friendship and Sean's friendship and association with Metallica, obviously they have done a lot to keep the name Diamond Head, quote unquote, in the press and alive and people talking about it. But also the fact that, once we parted ways with Sean, that I was able to take up the mantle and run with it and basically, get Diamond Head to, the level where we had sorry management and we're playing, big festivals and, doing supports with Saxon, Uriah Heep, and Thin Lizzy, Europe, etc., etc. So I'd like to think that people would think, okay, I've done that for a band that I was a huge fan of. I first saw them in 1978. I was able to become part of that. Help, maintain that. But also, if folks, think I'm an okay player. Bring something to the table from a drumming perspective. And as a musician.
Okay.
So.
Cool. So are we good so far?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You keep going.
All right. So looking back on your career, is there anything you wish you'd had done differently or any regrets you have?
Okay. That's an interesting question, that is. Okay. Yes, there's one moment that I look back on now, and obviously, hindsight being 2020, it's a wonderful thing too. But when I was working, because I first started working with Brian on the Radio Moscow thing, I think that was 85 through 86. And then I went to study at the Drummers Collective in New York City. And when I came back, I realized that as a player and as a musician, I wanted to move on and maybe not necessarily, quote unquote, put myself out there as a hired gun, but be able to play many different styles, because new wave of British heavy metal in the UK had moved on. If you hadn't made it by, 83, 84, you weren't going to make it in a new wave of British heavy metal band. Because in the UK, we'd moved on to, the new romantic stuff, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, Thompson Twins,
Right.
etc. And of course, thrash was now emerging in America. Things are a lot faster, a lot more double kick. So as a musician, as a drummer, to play, to continue to play in original music and maybe get hired, quote unquote, as a hired gun, one needed to learn some different styles. And also as a player, I got into people like Steve Gadd, listening to, Paul Simon, etc., etc. Vinnie Colaiuta, from, Frank Zappa.
Right.
So I got into like some of these fusion cats. And obviously it was like, oh, okay, wow, what are they doing? How are they doing that, etc., etc. So going to study, at the Drummers Collective really, really, changed my attitude. And once I left Radio Moscow, I started working with Sean, the original vocalist from Diamond Head, with Robin George, God rest his soul, he passed away, recently, on the Notorious project. Well, the producer was Peter Collins, and the engineer was Steve Churchyard. So Peter Collins had just finished working with Rush, and Steve Churchyard, I think, had just finished working with INXS. And Peter Collins mentioned to me that Gary Moore, I would be perfectly suited to work with Gary Moore, and he's looking for a drummer. So would you be interested? So, yeah, I said, absolutely. I put my name forward. But the truth of the matter is I was sort of contracted to do the Notorious thing. It was my first band working in a situation where they were signed to Warner Brothers in the UK and Geffen Records in the US, and the management were part rock. I think Steve Barnett and Stuart Young, or Stuart Young and Steve Barnett, whichever way they are. Sorry, gents, if I've gone in the wrong way round. But they were sort of managing AC/DC at the moment, and I think possibly Foreigner. I don't know. And being a complete newbie, not wanting to get a shit name that I'll jump ship, quote unquote,
Right.
at the first available offer, that's the one biggest regret, because for as much as I believed in the Notorious project, and obviously being a huge fan of Sean, with him being in Diamond Head, I mean, he has such a unique voice.
Yeah.
Yes, I wish I'd have just gone, sorry, guys, I'm taking this, and whatever flack comes at me, it comes at me.
Right.
But
okay.
I didn't at the time, like, obviously out of loyalty, being under contract, and also believing in what Sean and Robin were doing, even though it may have been 18 months to, let's say, 36 months ahead of its time.
Right.
So yeah, that's quote unquote, if I've got, I regret, that is it.
Okay.
Not taking, going for the Gary Moore thing.
Gotcha. So
because Peter Collins had just finished working with Rush, doing Neil Peart. So,
yeah.
So the fact that, I mean, he listened to the first drum take I did, he just listened to with that and the click track, leaning against the desk and said, okay, that's fine. So for somebody who just finished working with, an absolute genius maestro on the drums, Neil Peart, comes back and says, like, you know what? I think I got a gig for you. So kudos for everybody that I studied with at the Drummers Collective. And I'll give myself a little pat on the back as well. So, yeah, that's my biggest regret.
So aging inevitably brings changes to our physical abilities. How do you cope with any limitations or changes in a musician sense, and how does it affect your creative process, do you think?
Okay. Excuse me. In 1997, like most musicians, when you aren't in a band that's got a record deal or you're making money, quote unquote, you have to get what folks call getting to the real world.
Right. And
get a job. So I just moved to California from New Jersey with my ex-wife, and I started a job, and I was unloading trucks, and I'd only been in California, I think, 5 weeks, and I had a palate collapse on me, which resulted in 5.5 years of surgeries and convalescing and depression and everything that goes through with somebody telling you that you'll never play drums again because I have 14 pieces of titanium in my lower spine, and working through that. And so once I sort of was told that, I started to get into, things like Cubase and Nuendo, and then eventually Pro Tools.
Right.
And just clawed my way back slowly with a lot of pain medication and dealing with it on a daily basis. And my drum kit, I have to keep changing it. I can't really sit still for very long. So I'm constantly moving on, when I'm playing. But part of it is because that's the way I'm feeling the music. Some of it is also, I can't really sit like that. I'm a nightmare to sit next to in the movies or a theater or on a plane.
Right.
Yeah, people look at you and go like, "Can't you fucking sit still?" It's like, you know what, geezer? No, I can't. I really do wish I could, but excuse me, but I just can't. And I try to keep myself as fit as possible. I like to practice as much as I possibly can every day. And I think if I was playing in a cover band, a top 40 band, and I had to load the drums before every show, unload them, carry them into the show, set them up, do 4 sets, break them down, carry them out, I think I'll probably last a week, and then I'll just say, I think
Right.
that's it. The pain would be too much. And in fact, last year, I was rushed into intensive care because of all the damage, the amount of pain medication, has done to my stomach. So I'm on a different regime. Just got to learn to deal with it, and just take care as much as one's body as I can. I take vitamins. I cycle. I used to run, but obviously with a spine injury, that's it's puts too much pressure on your lower spine. I mean, if you're a front, like your folks who run on their toes, like the folks from Kenya,
Right.
it'd be okay, but I never learned to run that way, and I'm too lazy. You know what I mean? I'm at the moment I'm learning to play double kick at twice the speed I've ever played it before, so that's a bit more important to me at the moment. But yeah, for the first Tank show, I was doing, obviously because the band is there's 2 guys live in the UK. Obviously, I'm here currently in France. Mick lives in Holland, and Marcus lives in Sweden. So we all had to do our own woodshedding. So I was, going and playing the set, and then going again and playing it again, later in the day, and then a week before, I was playing the set 3 times. To myself, just so that by the time I knew the songs well enough, but also I was physically working myself up to go and play. I mean, Tank is a little bit more in your face than Diamond Head. So obviously a lot more double kick than I do with Diamond Head. I mean, original Diamond Head tracks, there's no double kick. So, I've introduced that into Helpless and Am I Evil and To Heaven from Hell, and several others. But I don't class myself, quote unquote, a double kick like some of these modern cats. I mean, I endorse Murat Diral cymbals, and one of the guys that's on there is Dave Deerpold. And I watch him, and I look at his feet, and I laugh. I just absolutely out of sheer admiration for what that cat's doing. So,
Nice.
I do what I can with the limitations that I have with my spine.
Right.
So,
That makes sense.
taking all that kind of stuff into consideration. Obviously, being rushed into intensive care, basically, basically, I was, pretty close to dying. I'd been bleeding internally, and my hemoglobin level was, I think it was 5.2.
Jeez.
And according to the everybody, saying it's 5.0 is potential heart failure.
Oh,
I just thought I was suffering from jet lag because I've been over in the US for 3 months, and
Right.
Just 61 years old. You just think you're
Right.
getting old, and you're fucking, trying to go up the stairs. But no, apparently I was bleeding, and I wasn't passing any blood, so I wasn't aware of it.
Right.
And yeah, so obviously after that, sort of live life as if today's going to be your last one, because you don't know when that might be.
Yeah,
So
correct.
yeah.
So what role do you think nostalgia plays in the continued popularity of classic heavy metal or heavy music in general?
Yeah, I think, I think there is some nostalgia, and I know there are several bands who are like, I'm not playing the old shit. I don't care what the fans want. I'm not going down that route of playing songs just so you can sort of possibly maybe think or feel you were back in such and such a day. So I think there is some nostalgia of going to see a show and being transported back to a moment in time. But I also truly think that folks want to come out and see, wow, you're still doing it. That's great. You haven't given up. You get the band, regardless of, where you are on the success level. I mean, there's only a handful of bands who just keep rising and going up and up and up. Most bands get to a level plateau, then maybe come down a bit, or then maybe come back, maybe get to the next level. But I think, people wanting to go see, like Michael Schenker, let's listen to that, Lights Out solo. Yeah, we could. Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's still great. Coming to see, Diamond Head. Yeah, there's, Brian playing "Am I Evil" back in the day, quote unquote. And also the fact that there are bands out there that are still playing these songs, which had a lot of meaning to the folks who wrote them, the bands and the fans, etc., etc. Because it sort of defined a genre, which went on to influence what became thrash, and then everything that came after that. And all the legacy bands like Saxon, Tin Lizzy, let me see, Uriah Heep, those bands that are on that level. But there will come a time when maybe Mick Box will say, I don't want to do it anymore, and maybe that will be the end of the time. I mean, I watched an interview, Michael Parkinson interview, BBC, and Elton John was on there, and I think he was 27 or 28 or 30 at the time. And he said, "I don't want to be doing this when I'm 55." And then he was, headlining Glastonbury a few years ago.
Right.
but it's like a drug as well. As players, you want to go out and play, and I think as long as there's an audience, they're going to come out to see you because they want to actually hear those songs be played live. And in some of that, there is some nostalgia, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Absolutely right there. I'd like to think it's not all nostalgia.
No, I think it's a little mix of both. I think you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Wild Hearts fan. I've been a fan of, Ginger and the Wild Hearts since 1992. And they played a couple of shows in New York, I think, like 2009 or 2010 or something like that. And they played the entire Earth Versus album.
Oh, wow.
And I was, I was already good friends with Rich, the drummer. We sort of came from the same town back in the UK. Obviously, I was very good friends with Ginger. And I was at the back of the room, and I was singing every song, every word of every song.
Right.
So I don't know for me if that was. I think Earth Versus came out, possibly like 93, 94. I don't know if that was nostalgia for me, but I didn't get a chance to see them on that tour. But for me to go and see them play that album, it was like, yo, dude, this is fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
So lastly, then, what are some advice you would give to musicians? Let me just rephrase this the correct way. What advice would you give to younger musicians who are just starting their journey in the heavy music world?
Okay. Well, there's a lot more competition now than when I started. That is a sure fact. I mean, rock, to my knowledge, like Scorpions were the only band from Germany that the folks like sort of knew about in the 70s. Now there's a multitude of bands from Germany. And on top of that, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the US, South America, Australia, so the marketplace is huge now for metal, which is sort of why when folks say, oh, it's going to die. It's like, no, it's never going to die. Because you just look at the festivals.
Right.
There are more metal festivals in the world than any other type of festival. So, be aware that there's going to be some competition. For starters, there's going to be bands who are rehearsing 7 nights a week, potentially, or at least 5. Okay, it's have the conviction to believe in the music that you are playing, and also with the folks that you are with. And I don't know if it was a music analogy or a business one, but there are three sort of reasons to be in a band and have a band. One of them is the music you're playing, you're creating is fantastic. It's the best in the world. Secondly, everybody in the band is brilliant. and you're all great friends. And thirdly, the money's good.
Right.
Now, you have any two of those three, you can keep a band going. Right. You can keep it moving forward. If you've only got one, then it's difficult, but you can make all the money in the world, love the songs, but not like everybody. But so everybody turns up in different cars, etc., etc. You understand? But from a drumming perspective, what I've sort of passed on to my students is if you want to play like Dave Grohl or you want to be Mike Portnoy, you chase this dream. Okay, you chase your dream to be a rock and roller or a prog or whatever it is that you want to do. However, maybe take a step back, learn some other craft on the drums. Should the opportunity to go forward and make music in the particular genre that you truly want to doesn't arise for whatever circumstances, it's like the older you get, the more likely a band is going to sort of separate and somebody's got married or somebody's going to leave the other side of the country or the other side of the world, so it is believe in yourself, believe in the people that you are working with. As a musician, learn your craft. That doesn't mean to say go out there and be as technical as possible, because music at the end of the day comes from your heart and your soul. And if you want to, beat the shit out of the drums, then that's the way you play. If you want to be more technical, like somebody like Neil Peart and Mike Portnoy, then that's the way you play. But you play with passion. It all comes from your soul.
Right.
And it's just having the belief. And sometimes when a door shuts, when Brian was offered the gig with Saxon and, the hiatus, was sort of, I won't say enforced, but it was just a reality. Brian is now in Saxon and Diamond Head is going to have to work with that. The opportunity for Tank, came my way. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't go out looking, for that kind of thing. And because I've always believed in myself, and I always thought something may come along. I had no idea it would be a band, like Tank. I mean, but because of my schooling at the Drummers Collective, I wouldn't have minded if it would have been somebody who'd seen me play and it would have been an R&B band or something. Because at the end of the day, whilst I love rock and that's probably my passion, I was also a jazz cat, and I listened to the people that Bonham listened to, which were the R&B and the Motown drummers. I listened to the cats that Ian Pace listened to, and you listen to Phil Rudd. It's like, you simple 2 and 4, you keep it straight in the groove, you don't fuck with the groove, and this is it. And it's like, what? That drum is just as impressive as watching Mike Portnoy. Because it's right for the song, and that's it. So for me, whether I was going to play rock again, because again with the hiatus the band is on with Saxon, with Brian, this opportunity arose, and I jumped at it. But I would have also jumped at a chance of playing R&B because I just love playing music. At the end of the day, and I also think as well, back in the day when we started, bands had a little bit more of an eclectic grouping of characters, as opposed to some bands today. If everybody in the band only listens to thrash metal, then the script of the music is only going to be a certain way. You listen to bands like, Zeppelin and Rainbow and, AC/DC and Deep Purple, you can see all the flavors of the musicians coming together to formulate this entity called Deep Purple. I mean, Ian Pace was a huge Buddy Rich fan and a jazz cat, and you can hear that in his playing. But at the same time, he's powering Deep Purple along like an absolute mother. And the same with Bonham. Like people, they talk about Bonham and it's like, yeah, it's all power and this. But it's like, whoa, just hold the volume down and zone in on what he's doing on the snare drum. There's a lot of ghost noting going on there. There's a lot of control technique. And you can see where that's come from. So another thing is listen to these cats and bring it into your playing and develop your own style and run with it. And be as unique and as original as you possibly can. And also, if you're a band member, I'd say to folks is get involved. Don't just think, oh, I'm just the drummer and that's all I'm going to do. It's like in this day of social media and everything that folks can do on a computer, it's like help write the songs, maybe get involved in the recording, maybe do some arranging, create some merchandise, do the social stuff, really get involved in the band and become involved in the entity of this thing. Unfortunately, bands have become brands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so become involved and seriously invested in your band/brand, so you can have a say in it. Play the best music you can, be the best musician you can. Be open to new ideas, open to suggestions. Go and watch as many different cats as you possibly can. You may not like the band, you may not like the drummer, but he may do something or she may do something that you go, fuck, that was good. I've got to go and learn that because that was that was the dogs. And just keep learning as a player. You never stop learning because you can hear a piece of music that has just been released and gone, oh, wow. And then, for myself, I just put my iPod on shuffle, and the next thing I know, there's a piece of music that's come on from the 50s, and I'm going like, holy shit, that drum sounds great. Whoa, what's going on there? It's like, you can never, ever stop learning, as a musician or an artist or an entertainer. There's always somebody out there doing something that you look at, you admire and go, yeah, that's good. Yeah, they've mastered that. So.
Well, Karl, that's going to bring me to the end. We're running up on my time here. I hope that wasn't too bad.
No, man, that was great, Bruce. Anytime, whatever, I can help. More than happy to, man. More than happy to.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time. You rock. Long time.
Thanks, man. You take care. And either myself or Ice will keep you posted regarding of any DH or tank shows in the US, and look forward to meeting you, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Have a good day, my friend.
You too.
Cheers.
Take care, man. Bye-bye. Bye.